It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions.
Touchdown, San Diego!
Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Monday? We do. From the Dixie Line Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, we welcome you to our Monday bonus podcast, Hacksaw's Headlines. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, along with my co-host, broadcasting from left field with his opinions, John Riley. We welcome you coming off this great sports weekend. We have an absolute ton of topics on the table. This podcast is brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego, as well as the new location in Dana Point in Orange County. You got projects for the rest of 2024, thinking about things for 2025. Think about these people because they've got the materials, they've got the ideas. They can become your best friend and your consultant at Dixie Line Lumber. John Riley, good afternoon. Coming off a great sports weekend, an unbelievable night ahead of us in basketball, and late-breaking stories in the world of sports. Yeah, we might be here till dinner time. We got so many topics on the table. How you doing?
I'm doing good. You're just telling me all the stories of your adventures at the press conference with the Aztecs. I'm sure we'll get to that too.
We're going lots of different directions. Before we start, just a couple of business items. John, we started something that's just gone over like gangbusters. I swear to you, one of these days, we're not going to put topics on the table. One of these days, we're just going to do Fans Forum with the viewers, the followers, and the listeners. For everybody that joins us early on our podcast on live stream, explain to them, if you can, how Fans Forum works and how they can be part of this thing before we wrap it up.
Okay, so yeah, you want to be part of this thing. This is your chance. Jump on board. If you've got a question or comment in the world of sports, just type your comments in the live chat on Facebook, X, or YouTube. We'll get you involved in Fans Forum at the end of Hacksaw's Headlines. And man, it's one of the most popular segments we do.
So we got Fans Forum. Also, we want you to share, want you to subscribe. We want you to share and tell everybody what we do. Mondays at 1 p.m., Thursdays at 1 p.m., I say sports talk the way it should be done, the way it used to be done. So share, tell all your friends on your email list, on Twitter, on social media. Hacksaw is back, and we're on Mondays and Thursdays at 1. We want you to subscribe. When you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you will get the alerts every time we put something up on our YouTube channel, and we do a lot of that during the course of the week. Also, we want you to, if you like sports, check my website. It's leehacksawhamilton.com. It's written every day. It's there first thing in the morning. You won't believe the volume of information I provide, along with opinions. The best 15 minutes in sports, one man's opinion column, and our mini polls. So check my website every morning, leehacksawhamilton.com. You'll be the second most knowledgeable person in sports, aside from the guy that wrote all that stuff on the website. But just please check the website. Also, you're on social media. I know you're on social media. I see all your stuff on social media. I want you to join my Twitter All-Star team. Just follow me. Handle @Hacksaw1090. @Hacksaw1090. Hit the follow button. That way you'll get all the alerts every time I put something up on social media on X. John, we're going a lot of different directions. Man, there's a lot of stories to talk about. Let's just get started because I watched too much NFL TV yesterday to the point my eyes were falling out of my head by 9 o'clock last night.
I mean, that Charger game last night was something.
Okay, let's just do a recap of the games real quickly here for you. And if you got a comment about one of the teams, one of the games you'd like to make, feel free. Chargers, Cincinnati Bengals. I said it was going to be a shootout. It had to be Justin Herbert versus Joe Burrow, and it was. First half of the game, here's Justin Herbert driving the Chargers down the field, built a 27-6 lead. And I thought to myself, God, that's what Air Coryell and the Dan Fouts era looked like. I mean, they were just launching missiles and rocket shots. He kept completing big passes, chunk yardage. He had a stretch. Get this, John. He had 6 straight completions of 20, 29, 20, 21, 20, and 26.
Wow.
I mean, he was just electric in the first half. And I said, yeah, that's what Air Coryell looked like. And then in the second half, the only word that came to my mind the whole bloody second half when Cincinnati came back to tie it at 27-27 in the final 2 minutes was Chargering. They're going to screw this sucker up, and they almost did.
They almost did.
So the Chargers wound up winning it. The Chargers go to 7-3 on the season. Cincinnati's got every right to be upset. I mean, Justin Herbert wound up the day with 362 all-purpose yards, throw and run, and he has now become a real danger. He has become what John Elway, a young John Elway, used to be, running when plays break and making huge gains. Or now the threat of running forces your defense into stress because he can bust big runs and he can throw the ball down the field simultaneously as he starts that big runs. So he has arrived as a star. I felt bad for Joe Burrows. You see the scowl on his face? He got no help at all. He threw for 356, 3 more touchdowns. Last week he threw for 426, and they still lost. He's got no help around him. And I'll tell you, this may be the shabbiest year of officiating I have ever seen in the league in modern times, even with instant replay. Last night, Brad Allen, who should probably be applying for working an overnight job at some carry-out convenience gas station, Brad Allen, the referee, blew 5 calls in that game. All of them went against Cincinnati. Ooh. He blew 3 calls in a 24-second span at the end of the first half. One of them was on a roughing the quarterback hit on Herbert that was not roughing the quarterback. Another was a pass interference call on a ball that was not catchable, and 2 receivers got tangled up. And the third one was supposedly a cut block that was not a cut block because a guy got thrown into a Charger player. It was brutal. And then on the final series, Joe Burrow got 2 blows to the face mask. Brad Allen's crew swallowed their whistles. 5 blown calls, all of them against Cincinnati. But I give the Chargers credit. They had to step up. They did. They almost lost it. That's 1 win in the check column that they had to prove they could get. They did. Next weekend, Monday night, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Baltimore Ravens. They got to check another box off to prove who they are. Kansas City, Buffalo. You know, I kept saying this is the most unimpressive 9-0 team I've ever seen. It finally caught up to them. They could not come from behind. Can't take away anything they did in 8 come-from-behind wins this season. But Josh Allen just outdueled Patrick Mahomes. Allen had 262 yards passing, 57 yards rushing, including the back-breaking touchdown. Buffalo against a really good Kansas City defense, 9 of 15 on third downs. But Kansas City just dug a hole, never climbed out of it. And for the Bills, and I don't think this is a complete roster, especially on offense, but for the Bills, this was really a statement game for them to beat Kansas City. I bet they see each other in the playoffs again. Pittsburgh, Baltimore. Please explain to me how the Steelers have 8 wins. You know, the Steelers that had a Neanderthal offense at the beginning of the season. The Steelers are 2 rental quarterbacks that other teams didn't want on 1-year contracts. And now Russell Wilson is playing like vintage Russell Wilson. I mean, it was smash ball. Thank goodness for Chris Boswell, 6 field goals. Pittsburgh wins that ball game. Defense had an interception, 2 fumble recoveries, 3 sacks, stopped the 2-point conversion, held Baltimore. Baltimore's offense was averaging 452, held Baltimore to under 250 yards, held Baltimore to 3 of 12 on third down conversion. Pittsburgh, who did all this with a Neanderthal offense. What an unbelievable job. At one point in that game, Lamar Jackson was 10 for 24 throwing the football. Wow. 10 for 24. Just absolutely amazing. Miami Raiders, Tua Tagovailoa, 288, 3 touchdowns. Gardner Minshew quit turning the ball over, but they don't have enough firepower. He threw for 282 as the Raiders go to 2-8 on the season. This kid, Brock Bowers, this is big-time stud. Tight end, 13 receptions for 130-plus yards. I was really, really impressed with the tight end. But the Raiders are now 2-8 on the season. Miami's trying to claw its way back into the playoff race. Chicago, Green Bay. Jordan Love found a way. He kept them in the game by throwing touchdown passes early. Then he scored on a run with under a minute to go. Green Bay finally put away the Chicago Bears. They had to block a field goal right at the end of the game to win that game. Caleb Williams, under the new offensive coordinator, didn't turn the ball over the first time, didn't take 9 sacks as he did the week prior. Threw for 231, ran for 70, but that head coach is in big jeopardy. He might get fired, Ed Eberflus. New York Jets, Indianapolis Colts. The Jets, Jets, Junk. What a mess. Jets are 3-8. Aaron Rodgers, so pedestrian. He's got all these skilled people around him and it just has not come together. 184 yards passing, took 3 sacks, 1 touchdown. Anthony Richardson, who had been benched because he's played so poorly, he of 44% completion rate. Anthony Richardson, 272, a touchdown through the air, 2 touchdowns running. And the final game, I'll just throw this as an add-on, Denver Bo Nix arrived yesterday.
Oh, that was nice.
What did I say last Thursday? Preview this. Atlanta doesn't play real well on the road. Atlanta got clipped on the road. What was it, 38-6? Bo Nix, 314, 4 touchdown passes, best game of his young life. Tell you, Sean Payton's doing a great job coaching this kid up. Denver, of all people, is 6-5 on the season. That's really hard to believe. So, John, did you have visitations with Air Coryell, or were you scared about chargering in that game? And you want to comment on some of the others?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of emotions in that game, right? The one line that I remember hearing is how the announcer said that Joe Burrow said that he was playing the best quarterback of his career, and yet he was losing. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, they lost some pieces on offense, but this is all on the defense, right, for the Bengals. So what did the Bengals do differently in the second half?
The Chargers got real conservative. Chargers tried to run the ball, kind of eat the clock, and they couldn't run it. And then Herbert, there was a stretch, Justin Herbert went 6 for 20 throwing the football in the second half. 6 for 20.
Charging.
Yeah, charging. And they lost their rhythm and their mojo. And the Chargers secondary, I still don't think it's a great secondary, even if they got Derwin James, personal fouls and all. The Chargers secondary just didn't cover Jamar Chase or Taj Boyd very well. And Joe Burrow kept running patterns and kept hitting. They almost hit the Hail Mary at the end of the game. Boyd was open right on the goal line, and the ball popped up and then got batted away, but he had his hands on it for the game-tying touchdown, which would have sent that sucker into overtime. So Cincinnati got hot, got into a rhythm. The Chargers got too conservative. They had 7 possessions in the second half and had 1 field goal. Charger offense of the first half, where to go in the second half? Too conservative. So the play calling, that's how Cincinnati got back in the game. And then Cincinnati secondary broke down on the final drive and 3 pass plays, game over.
The curse of the Spanos. That's what it is. The other comment I want to make is about Baltimore against Pittsburgh. And I watched that game, and it was entertaining. But you thought that Baltimore's offense was going to be too much for the Steelers, that they were going to overwhelm them. Lamar Jackson, MVP candidate. What happened?
They dropped a ton of guys into coverage. They spied Lamar, so if he moved the pocket, somebody moved with him and took away the running dimension. And then he kind of got out of sync because he couldn't find receivers, and he started to take hits. And Derrick Henry only had 62 yards rushing. They normally play power ball with him. Did not happen. But just Pittsburgh's defense just beat him up. And Baltimore had 12 penalties. Talk about coming out of character. And Baltimore's secondary didn't make enough plays on defense. I mean, I was shocked that a John Harbaugh team would play that badly. Here's a stat for you. John Harbaugh is 1-8 against Mike Tomlin in the AFC North.
How's that possible?
Yeah, how's it with that team? So, I mean, Pittsburgh earned this one. I mean, it's not pretty. You know, if you look at the skyline of Pittsburgh, you still see the old steel mills and all that industrial silt and all that. You know, there's a gray. That's the way Pittsburgh plays football.
Yeah.
It's not sexy.
Right.
It's not sparkly.
That's the way they've always been, the steel curtain and everything. And by the way, the Chiefs-Bills, that has really turned into a great AFC rivalry.
Oh, yeah. And we'll see them again in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, that's all things NFL. You got to comment on any of the games that we've just commented on. That Fans Forum chat box is open. Jump in early. Now, we don't need you to write a book. Just give us a couple of good sentences of either questions or opinions. Don't write a book that fills up the whole screen. But chat box is open. Fans Forum, all things NFL. Now, you want to talk about off-the-field NFL next.
Yeah, the coaches. Some of these guys are in trouble, aren't they, Lee?
Yeah, let's just go through some unique storylines that have developed since Friday. Belichick. He's going to coach next year. Enjoy whatever you're enjoying with him on TV or on whatever platform he's on. He's on everything.
Big boss man.
He's going to be on the sidelines next year. He's already put his staff together, led by Josh McDaniels, who will be his assistant head coach and offensive coordinator. Here's the burning question. I mean, we're going to have some jobs that are going to open. As we sit here on a Monday afternoon, it's a bye week in Jacksonville. I am surprised they've not yet fired Doug Peterson, the head coach, in the wake of 2-8 and just a catastrophe. That being said, it's a bye week. So if they don't get him on Monday, they might fire him on Tuesday. Anyhow, Jacksonville could be open. Giants, Jets, Dallas Cowboys, maybe the Raiders. Here's the burning question. You know what Belichick did, 6 rings and all that with the Patriots, because you know he had Tom Brady. But he did not do a great job drafting. So when Brady left, retired, went to Tampa, went on TV, New England fell apart, and then Belichick eventually vacated the job, was forced out. If you're one of these teams that's going to be looking for a head coach, would you hire Belichick strictly as my coach? Or would you give Belichick, based on track record 6 rings, full player personnel authority? That's the burning question for these teams that are going to have vacancies. You really think Jerry Jones would cede power, decision-making, player personnel power to Belichick? Interesting conversation point.
I'm not really sure if Belichick's the answer. Maybe the game's passed him by, because without Brady, he's nothing. He's just a dude, like a defensive coordinator. So is he really the hot commodity?
Well, a lot of people think he is, just based on track record, and dude does have 6 rings. So keep that in mind. Belichick's name is at the forefront of any conversation about coaching opening. Second storyline, Dallas Cowboys. This is really intriguing. Dallas Cowboys still have a head coach, but most everybody's opinion, Mike McCarthy and entire staff, all on the final years of their contract, are all going to be let go. Deion Sanders to Dallas. Michael Irvin is preaching to Jerry Jones, Neon Deion, Coach Prime to Dallas. So Deion had the lousy first year of Colorado, brilliant second year of Colorado. His kid's leaving CU to go to the NFL draft, and Coach Prime is rumored to be leaving Boulder at the end of the season. There's a big sales pitch there. Third name, Tennessee Titans. Awful team. What's their record? 2-8, 3-7, whatever. It shows what a hell of a coach Mike Vrabel was.
Oh, yeah.
Mike Vrabel, of course, is on the street. He's acting as a consultant this year. I would assume he'll be somebody's head coach next season. That ex-Tennessee Titan coach is somebody you need to pay attention to. Minnesota Viking logo. It's not about their head coach. It's about the defensive coordinator. Brian Flores, architect of great defenses, used to work for Belichick. Brian Flores had good success in Miami, then got fired. He's rebuilt Minnesota's defense. Brian Flores wants to be a head coach next season. Flores is a hot name. Fourth one is the Washington Commanders offensive coordinator. Didn't do well first head coaching job, had flashes. Talking Cliff Kingsbury.
Oh, yeah.
He's a hot name that's out there, too. And he's the one that's directly responsible for the X's and O's of what Jaden Daniels has become as maybe rookie their candidate in the NFL. So those are all things coaching storylines, but at the top of the list obviously has to be Belichick's name. Would you hire him as coach and general manager, or just as coach? Do you think Jerry Jones would give up power? Go ahead, John.
The top story that you listed is Coach Prime, man. If Coach Prime back in the NFL, this would be great. I don't know, Dallas is pretty conservative, and Jerry Jones likes to run a tight ship. I don't know how much that would really go over. The comment I want to make is on the Vikings defensive coordinator, Brian Flores. Wasn't he the one that was involved in the head coach racial discrimination situation?
Yes, the lawsuit is still there.
Yeah, it's still
and
cooking.
It's going to trial. Yeah,
Good.
He's suing the NFL and Roger Goodell in 3 different clubs, and there's a couple of other African-American coaches who lost their jobs, who thought they had other jobs to be hired, did not get hired. They're kind of part of this whole racial discrimination thing. But Brian Flores wants to coach in the NFL, and there are pretty good credentials there.
Yeah, I mean, say what you will about the Rooney Rule and everything else, but it was clear that that was a dog and pony show, that interview that Brian Flores went, because they had already picked someone.
Yep.
So hopefully he gets a chance and be able to prove himself.
Okay, you're an NFL fan. You want to talk about Belichick. What do you think about Belichick and his rings? Would you grant him power of authority to be coach and general manager, or just coach? Could you imagine? And the Raiders have always hired the shiny object. Can you imagine shiny object, Neon Dion, shiny object, Belichick. But would Tom Telesco, the new general manager, give up all of his player personnel power to allow Belichick to move to Las Vegas? It's fascinating.
Does Tom Brady kind of whisper in Telesco's ear?
Oh, if that's the case, then I guess Belichick wouldn't be going there. Okay, all things football hirings, jump on board. Fans Forum window is open. Third topic on the table. Let's talk college football.
College football, the Aztecs had a rough go in Vegas.
Oh, we're going to go a lot of different directions here. San Diego State got smoked at UNLV. They're now 3-7. There's no bowl game. The aura of Rocky Long, Brady Hoke, boy, that seems like it's a long time ago. It's not that far back. They gave up 515 yards in offense. Quarterback Daniel New got pounded through 2 interceptions. I went to the press conference today with Sean Lewis, because I go to all these press conferences to ask questions, to get quotes and stuff and for stories and columns for my website. And I just kind of walked in the door and said, we're not going to listen to any more coach speak. We're not going to listen to any more attributes about players buying in and attitude's great. Your ass is 3-7. This is horrible. We're not going to listen to how you need more financial support. There's only 12,775 that showed up for your last home game, which to me is just despicable. I don't want to hear any of that. So at the end of the press briefing, after he had run through his regimen of coach speak, which I can't handle, I said, I want to ask you a question aside from Aztec football. And he said, okay. I said, let's talk about the state of college football, Power 5, the group of 4 that's left. Or it's actually Power 4, the group of 5. I said, what's your take on the state of college football, the NIL, and transfer portal, which I happen to think has been very detrimental to the game? So he started to give me a generic answer. So he looked at me, he finished. I said, Sean, if you were king, what would you change? If you could make the decision, what would you change? And he said, do you have enough time for this? I said, yeah, I got all day. And he expounded. It was the best thing I've ever heard from him since the day he got hired. I've been very impressed with him. But I'm tired of coach speak, and, we're not handing out trophies for just showing up at a game. He went out and he just flat out said, if I were king, if you're taking my players in the transfer portal after I invested and taught these players and created this talent, the NCAA should compensate San Diego State for every player that's taken by a Power 4 conference school. We get a stipend. And I'd never heard that from anybody, that you're going to take the big guy from my team? You got to pay us a fee to take the big guy because we invested and believed and coached that guy up. Fascinating statement. And I'll tell you what, I bet there's a hell of a lot of coaches that would think that way. And then the other thing was the transfer portal. And I just readdressed it. You're the king. You had 42 players go into the transfer portal last year once you took this Aztec program. If you were king, what would you change about the transfer portal? And his response was, you cover the NFL, you cover baseball, you cover the NBA, you cover hockey. They all have free agency. And that's what this has become. They have one window. You have a date. December 1st, free agent window opens. Why can't we have one window, transfer portal? You have 15 days to get into the portal, and at the 15th day, the portal closes, and then teams make their choices. He says that has to change. There's too much tampering going on. Obviously, show me the money. Players leave. Players change their mind. Families sell kids to other schools. So it was really interesting. It's the best stuff I've ever heard come out of his mouth. And he talks 1,000 miles an hour. Kind of like he wishes his offense played Aztec fast. But it was really enlightening to actually get him to, quote, open up, step away from coach speak, and talk about compensation. If you're going to take my top wide receiver at San Diego State and he's going to a group of 4 school, there should be a fixed fee for every player we lose to that group. That way, that would make us whole. We could use money then to go get other players. Fascinating there. And then obviously 1 window, not 2 windows for large periods of time where guys can come in, guys can come out. Interesting. So that's the Aztec story. By the way, the other team in town, we should just talk about this briefly. University of San Diego. Their coach is Brandon Moore in his 2nd year. Last year was just a black cloud because of the hazing issues with players. He was not allowed to talk to the media, which I thought was garbage. University, I think, took a real black eye. They solved the problem with the hazing situation. USD is 7-3 this season.
Hey, right on.
One of the best 1AA defenses in the country. Quarterback Grant Sargent threw for 6 touchdowns this past weekend. They beat Stetson. What I'd really like to see USD do, but it would take a huge financial commitment because they're a non-scholarship program. It's kind of Ivy League academic. Mm-hmm. And they're in the Pioneer League. But you couldn't name a team in the damn Pioneer League, could you?
No.
University of Dayton, Presbyterian, et cetera, mm-hmm. Academia. I'd really like to see USD, because they are 1AA in essence, without scholarships. Go to Big Sky Conference.
Yeah.
Play Montana State, which get good players. Now, to do that, you got to fund, I think it's 65 scholarships for football. I don't know how that impacts USD because of Title IX, et cetera. But they need something because it's a good program. Dale Lindsey, former NFL coach, had been the head coach for a chunk of time and got him in the 1AA playoffs as non-scholarship, and they won games. I'd love to see them be a member of the Big Sky so the community, the student body, they don't go to the games. They can't identify with the University of Dayton or these other people. Let them be 1AA, play Montana State, be in the ratings, be in the playoffs, because 1AA football, or FCS as it's called, they got their own identity, and it's a pretty good program. They put guys in the NFL on a regular basis, but I don't know if USD can financially afford that. USC, new quarterback. Kid transferred in from Vegas, sat for half the season behind Miller Moss, and then Miller Moss was benched because of 9 interceptions and a lot of turnovers. And Juden Mayava, Vegas transfer quarterback who had a really great freshman year, led them to victory this past weekend. Very impressive start, 3 for 249, couple of 3 touchdowns, did not panic. UCLA, same old. Their 3-game winning streak went by the boards. They got beat. They got beat up at home, which is too bad. Couldn't run the ball. Ethan Garbers played okay, but didn't throw a lot of touchdown passes. So they're sitting there at 4-6 on the season after they kind of got bashed by the University of Washington, which is in rebuild season itself, and they got beat up by the Huskies' backup quarterback. So I don't know where we are with UCLA. I know where the AD is, and I don't quite understand this. They just over the weekend gave Martin Jarman, their athletic director, a 3-year contract extension.
Wow.
He's the athletic director who sank a ton of money into Chip Kelly, and we know how all that worked out. We moved them out of the Pac-12 to go to the Big Ten. We're on the outside looking in. Obviously hired Deshaun Foster, who still has great hopes that he and Eric Bieniemy are going to flip this thing. But it's like they play their games and nobody pays attention because they're not a West Coast team anymore. They're playing back there. They gave Martin Jarman a 3-year contract extension. The athletic department deficit, what's the limit on your credit card? The athletic, you ready for this, John?
Yeah.
Their athletic department, Bruins Athletics. Now, it's 21 intercollegiate programs. Yeah. It has to live off what football and basketball drives financially. It's $167 million in debt. The athletic program. And
overall or just in 1 year? No, it must be overall.
Overall.
Yeah.
$167 million. They gave the athletic director a 3-year contract extension after the Chip Kelly fiasco, after the death of the Pac-12 that UCLA played a part in, going to the Big Ten where nobody pays any attention to UCLA. So why would you give them a 3-year contract? I don't understand anything at UCLA.
Well, students and taxpayers are making up the difference on that.
You are, aren't you?
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, we're the ones that are paying. But, UCLA has a big athletic program compared to other universities.
Well, most schools are 17 or 18. They got 21 intercollegiate sports.
Yeah, and like Stanford has a lot too,
yeah,
right?
21.
Yeah. So, I look at these teams. First of all, San Diego State, Yeah, it's a rough go this season. Hopefully, Sean Lewis can have a better year too. But it's interesting that you got him to break out of the mold, and you actually had to have a real conversation. And we can debate some of those ideas, but I think those are innovative approaches, and I think those could have some upside for San Diego State and a lot of these other schools that are getting rated.
Oh, it's a huge problem. He's fearful of December. I think it's December 3rd. Transfer portal opens. He had 42 go in the portal last year. What's going to happen this year? Of course, Aztec fan don't give a crap. Their students don't go to the games. There's 200,000 alumni who don't go to the games. And it galls me, because I was a voice of the Aztecs in the Marshall-Falk era. We put the games on 690 with the Chargers. They were drawing 48 to 51,000 a game the Falk era. You do remember San Diego State, BYU, San Diego State ties USC, San Diego State, UCLA. Where those people gone? And there's no NFL team here, and nobody's going to the games. Athletic department keeps making mistakes. Built the stadium. Stadium was repositioned in the sun, which is terrible. The prices are outrageous, and nobody's going to the games. How could a, quote, Division I, we're going to be in the Pac-12, draw 12,775 to a home game?
Just seems like everything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong for San Diego State. The timing of the stadium, the move up to L.A., the COVID situation, and everything else. I just want to talk about USD for a moment. You're right. They have a legit program there. And are they the only West Coast Conference school that has a football program? They might be.
Could be, because Occidental does not anymore. Cal Poly Pomona does not. Riverside.
Well, none of those are West Coast Conference. I'm talking about
West Coast. Yes.
Yeah, like USF, St. Mary's, Loyola Marymount.
Okay, you're talking
Gonzaga.
West Coast Conference. Yeah, they were all basketball schools.
Right. So I think they're the only one that maybe has a football program. It's interesting to think about, like 40 years ago in San Diego, where the Aztecs had a Division I sports program and they weren't very good, or they played, they were good in the 70s, but it was a different level of program. UCSD was Division III. USD was not really on the map much, and now the whole thing is growing up. All of San Diego's growing up. So I love your idea. USD, get them into the big sky. I think it'd be great.
But I don't know how you financially fund it, because you have to give scholarships at 1AA, and scholarships then impact what you're doing with Title IX with all the women's sports at USD. It's a complex financial mosaic, really is.
Yeah, they need to get another big donor in there. Is Ron Fowler still doing it?
Tell you, they and San Diego State football, they need a big cigar.
Oh, big time.
Yeah, big time. Okay, that's what's gone on in college football. You got opinions, feel free to jump on board. What's your reaction to what Sean Lewis told me? Kirk Kenny of the Union Tribune, who does a really cool job with covering the Aztecs, he's going to probably write a story about this. I said, if you use his quotes, you just make sure that he was answering Lee Hacksaw Hamilton's pointed questions at the heated press conference. But Sean stood up there. I was the best I've ever heard him speak about something really important. Of course, they're not giving out any more participation trophies to San Diego State football, and I can't stand coach speak.
One more question on San Diego State. Marquez Cooper is obviously a great back, a great history, got another 1,000-yard season, but why don't we see any of the other running backs?
Because he knows Cooper, and I concur with you. I think he should be developing everybody, and he's not. He's focused on 3 or 4 receivers and the one running back, and the other guys are just kind of drifting in and out occasionally. And so when Cooper exits this year, maybe goes to the Canadian Football League, he's a fine small college football player. They're going to have to develop, but they have 3 or 4 other running backs led by Lucky Sutton. That'll be the future. That future will start after the final game against the Air Force Academy.
But they're probably looking forward to December 3rd, some of those guys, because they're going to want to go in the portal. They said, I couldn't get any playing time.
Yeah, that or they'll be the next guy.
Okay.
But that's the big issue there. Okay, that's all things NFL football and college football. I'm looking for you to jump into Fans Forum in the chat box. We get to halftime. This podcast is brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you. I went to Dixie Line, and I got windows and doors for my house. He's gone to Dixie Line. Every room in his castle has something from Dixie Line in terms of cabinets and closets, walls and kitchen counters, etc. You got projects, they got answers, they got materials. You need ideas, they'd be glad to help you. As 24 turns to 2025, keep these people in mind. They are the creme de la creme when it comes to the construction business. Dixie Line Lumber. We go to the second half of our Monday bonus podcast. Just a couple of items. When we're done, we open it up for your questions and comments. It's called Fans Forum. If you just go into the chat box at the bottom of your computer screen, you can send us a message and we will respond. Item 2, if you like sports, check my website. I write on it every day, leehacksawhamilton.com. It's there first thing every morning. You won't believe the volume of sports that I present. That's every day, Monday through Friday on the website. Also want you to join my insiders group. There's a big orange box right on the home page of the website. Fill it out. You'll get emails, special things that we're offering. Want you to share, want you to subscribe. If you share, tell your friends. We do this podcast Mondays and Thursdays at 1. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. That way you'll get alerts every time John or I put something up on the YouTube channel, which is an awful lot of different days of the week. There's all kinds of different content there. And then the final item, if you're on social media, and I know you're on social media, I want you to follow me. Join Hacksaw's Twitter All-Star team. Just go to my slug line at Hacksaw1090. Hit the follow button. Follow me, Lee Hacksaw Hamilton at Hacksaw1090. John, we go to the second half of the podcast. And if it's not football everybody's paying attention to, it's free agency and baseball.
Baseball and Dodger fans are like still enjoying their victory. But Tampa, more updates on the stadium?
Oh, this is bad. You know, we talked last Thursday about the fact Major League Baseball and the Tampa Bay Rays and the New York Yankees reached a solution for Tampa, which is a homeless team, because of the damage from the hurricane to Tropicana Field. Legends Field, Steinbrenner Stadium in Tampa, Yankee spring training site, seats 11,000, will host all Tampa Bay games next season. 24 hours after that happened, St. Petersburg City Council canceled plans to vote on the financing for repairs at Tropicana Field and postponed a vote on funding the new baseball stadium on the other side of the bridge in St. Petersburg. Sunday, Stuart Sternberg, the owner of the Tampa Bay Rays, went public and said, if you cannot help us after what you agreed to do for us, this franchise would be in jeopardy. It could move. And within 24 hours, people from Montreal and from Nashville called Sternberg to say, are you willing to talk? Montreal is in the middle of renovation of Olympic Stadium. Nashville has been pushing to build an expanded stadium in a market that they think is going to be very, very viable for Major League Baseball. So, John, this is just shocking what's happened in Tampa Bay from last Thursday when we were on the air when they thought they had the solution to the mess that's occurred. St. Petersburg's officials and the city council, the president of the city council says, we had destroyed water systems, fluoride systems, all types of infrastructure, electronic grid problems, and we're supposed to give you $380 million immediately to fund a baseball stadium when we got all these other societal problems we have to take care of. Sternberg was really upset, and St. Petersburg officials said, we have to take care of our population base, just not pamper a baseball franchise. So this was a really bad situation in Tampa. Next topic, Boston Red Sox met for almost 4 hours on Saturday with the free agent, Juan Soto, with his agent, Scott Boras, meeting in a hotel in Newport Beach. They brought all the big hitters. They brought Tom Werner, the CEO, Sam Kennedy, the president, the new general manager, Craig Breslow, and Alex Cora broke off his vacation to come meet face-to-face with Soto. They had a good meeting. I was told the Mets had another meeting on the weekend. It might have been Saturday night or Sunday, and that was with Steve Cohen and all the Met infrastructure. They've made their first presentation. I was told it was really flashy as to who the Mets are, what they stand for, what their plans are in free agency, including sales pitches to other free agents. They want Soto to come in through the front door and all be introduced at the same press conference. Led to believe the Yankees are going to make their final presentation early this week, either Tuesday or Wednesday, all that in Newport Beach. So you got the Red Sox there. San Francisco, Buster Posey, legendary catcher, now president of baseball operations. You're in for a really bad summer because they're going to tear that thing down. Buster Posey says, I'm not going to have a roster of platoon players.
Hey, he's right.
And that's what Fahidi Ziran, the former general manager, had. He said, we're not going to operate that way. They're going into the free agent market. They put 4 guys on the trade block already, including a pretty popular guy in Mike Yastrzemski, the outfielder. So there's going to be trades there. Next one, Mets payroll. Get this. They have $110 million right now that's available to be spent on free agents.
Wow.
So if you're going to pay Soto $40, you still got 60 or 70 left to go get other free agents to put around Soto. That was what their sales pitch is. And they want to talk to Blake Snell. Fascinating there. Dodgers, get this. I mean, we're talking Dodger baseball, and we're talking extensively about Roki Sasaki, who I obviously think they're going to make a huge shot at and probably have a really legitimate chance to get him. They're talking to Snell, too. Now, the difference is they're talking to Snell about their price, not his price or Scott Boris's price. I was told they're willing to offer him 3 years at about $105 million total. Not 5 years, not 7 years. 3 years, all of it paid on schedule, not a lot of deferred money. So that's interesting. Walker Buehler, he's in Atlanta meeting with the Braves.
Yeah.
He was not qualified. Dodgers not going to pay him $21 million with a qualifying offer. Dodgers still want to talk to him about a deal, but Atlanta's looking to stockpile more arms, and evidently they got him in Atlanta at least for a visit, and they're talking to him. And it wouldn't be Dodger baseball if I wasn't talking about another guy having surgery. Bruce Dog Graterol.
Oh, that guy.
The setup guy, hard-throwing guy.
Yeah, he's a punk.
He's a punk, but he points to the sky at God and all that.
Right.
Okay. I wish you wouldn't do this show without opinions. He had labrum surgery. He pitched in September and was hurt, and he's torn his labrum. He's going to be gone until June. He's the 9th Dodger pitcher since last spring training to have shoulder, forearm, or elbow surgery.
Wow.
So that's the latest. You want to comment on Tampa Bay, Boston, your rebuilding Giants, the Mets money, and Dodgers in surgery? Go ahead.
Okay, first of all, for the Rays, I can't blame that city council. I mean, they have Hurricane Milton just blew up their whole town, and by the way, I just think we need to get beyond this idea that taxpayers are supposed to subsidize billionaires in their stadiums. I think it's idiotic. And they use it as leverage. If you're not going to give me $380 million, I'm going to go to Montreal or Nashville.
Yeah, but Sternberg he's paying $1 billion of it himself.
But still, he should pay it all. He should pay 100% of it, $2 billion or whatever it is. It's not the responsibility of taxpayers to pay for that. It's a private building with a private team. But they're in a bad spot. I mean, I'm surprised you didn't mention Portland. And what are the other expansion cities?
Well, I mean, it's everybody, Charlotte and Portland, but they don't have facilities per se, and they have no plans. Nashville's got a blueprint to build. Montreal's in the middle of renovation at Olympic Stadium. I happen to think the province of Quebec is now a different economic area than it was when they had the old expos. And, you've got Montreal and you got Ottawa and you got Toronto. It could be a great regional franchise. And the economics of the Canadian dollar versus the American dollar are different now than they were in the 1980s, 1990s. So, but we'll see what Sternberg comes up with. He was the one that initially floated the idea of playing part-time in Tampa, part-time in Montreal, and baseball said no.
Yeah.
But now he's got no place to play, really, in Tampa. And now
he'll have a place to play.
Montreal.
Yeah.
Stadium.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's interesting. And the Red Sox making a run at Soto, they got to obviously do something. Posey's right with the Giants. They got a bunch of, these meh players, like Lamont Wade Jr., and like you say, Mike Yastrzemski. They show flashes, but they're not championship caliber players. So I like the fact they're making those moves. Now, you said the Mets had $110 million to spend on free agency. Is that assuming that they keep their payroll spending at the level that it was last year, which is like a light years beyond the third level of the salary cap?
It was $309 million last year, and then you add on whatever the luxury tax was. Steve Cohen wrote the check. No problem. He says, I'm going to write the check again. We're going to spend it.
Right. Well, so can you imagine making New York taxpayers have to subsidize that too? I mean, that would be ridiculous, right? So I'm glad that Cohen is stepping up. And the Dodgers. I mean, Jesus. I mean, first of all, Dodger fan right now, they are still peacock dancing about their World Series victory and slamming Padre fans. And it's just like, man, have some grace and dignity with your championship.
Bullcrap, it's a rivalry.
It is a rivalry. Okay, so, but the fact of Bueller leaving doesn't surprise me. And then what was the Snell deal? Snell is such a mystery. You don't know what he's going to be, but it would just be heartbreaking to see Snell pitching for the Dodgers.
Oh, now you're speaking with your heart, being a Padre fan.
And a Giants fan. So I don't want to see Snell there. So
you're as bitter.
I am bitter. But, the Dodgers, just the rich get richer, right?
Okay, you're a baseball fan. Jump into the conversation point here. That Fans Forum chat box is open. You need to fill up this box that's on our computer with questions and answers. We go from baseball. We got hoops to talk about.
Big game tonight. Gonzaga, San Diego State. Here we go.
Best in the West. We got two great coaches. I think we all honor Brian Dutcher for what he's accomplished at San Diego State in 8 years as head coach. Prior to that, as the right-handed man trusted aide to Steve Fisher. We know what Mark Few has done. Here come the Zags. They are loaded. Gonzaga averaging more than 95 points per game. They're 3-0 on the season. They start a front line that goes 6'10", 6'9", 6'7". They can all score. They got two guys in the backcourt. Between them are averaging 28 points per game. They're big. They run. They convert. Their game is transition. And that game starts at 7 o'clock tonight. You go outside the back door, you smell burnt rubber. That's probably Gonzaga going up and down the floor.
Yeah,
that's who they are.
They're fast.
That's going to be
fun.
That's
Aztec fast.
Now, Aztecs got their hands full because their bigs are a little bit overwhelmed at this point. The only equalizer is State has proven right now they can shoot threes. They made 18 threes against Occidental. That's Occidental. But they're going to need threes to stay in this game. I hope it's not 81-52, but it could be 81-52 because the Zags are really that good. Hey, we've had a lot of dialogue about the NBA TV contract, and all of sports is signing new TV media deals and bringing streaming into the mix. And we know about the disaster. NBA signed Amazon for a streaming package. TNT, which had the rights, sued, said we had a right to match. And the NBA came back and said, you don't do streaming. You don't have a right to match the Amazon thing. TNT sued them. They just settled it out of court over the weekend. This is really interesting because did you know Charles Barkley was finally told what he was going to do? Charles Barkley became a bargaining chip. Charles Barkley,
really?
He was running his mouth saying, you screwed this thing up, TNT. How dare you let us lose our job, blah, 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 blah. And he said, we'll keep this together. Well, TNT still owns the rights to This Is the NBA pregame show, postgame show with Sir Charles, Kenny, Jet, and Shaq.
Okay.
They have sublet this lawsuit. They have taken the NBA show and they're subletting it to ESPN and ABC. They will carry it. TNT owns it. They will sell it. They will make profits off it. So the NBA, in trying to get out of this lawsuit that TNT filed, says, okay, this will be the financial settlement. You can keep that inventory. You could sublet it to ESPN. ESPN will get the ratings because they'll have Shaq and Sir Charles on the pre-post show. TNT is going to get the volume of money because they'll be able to inventory it.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. And then as also a byproduct of this, TNT also had another contract with the NBA. TNT handles the club's digital accounts, websites, things like that. They do all that. NBA is allowing them to keep it. So the NBA said, okay, this is the way we'll financially end this lawsuit. You keep This Is the NBA show. You can sublet it, and you keep digital so you can make money off it. So everybody's happy, though TNT won't have any games. Isn't that fascinating the way that thing worked out?
That worked out nice, I think.
And Sir Charles was told this is where you're going to go to work.
Well, yeah, because I think, everyone likes that pregame show, and it doesn't matter what network they're on.
Exactly. You'll find it. So that's the latest there. One other note. We deal with a lot of athletes, and we have to cover a lot of stories. Some of them are great, some are really stupid. Please explain to me why LaMelo Ball would do this. TV interview over the weekend talking about Charlotte-Milwaukee game. He used a homophobic slur when talking about Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Bucks superstar.
Yeah.
He got fined $100,000.
What an idiot.
Why would you do that?
Yeah.
I mean, God. He apologized this morning at the shoot-around for saying something stupid, but used a homophobic gay slur to talk about Giannis, one of the superstars and good guys in the league. What an absolute jerk. And there are people like this that we have to live with.
I mean, just like, you should learn by now that
you think?
Yeah, and have a filter. I mean, just generally speaking, when you're in front of a microphone or a camera, you kind of have to have like a second persona that's a little bit different than your regular persona so that you're above board on all this stuff. But what an idiot. Loving the NBA, on TNT. I like that pregame show. And Ernie Johnson, he's coming for the ride too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's a great crew. I love those guys. So I'm happy that they still keeping them together. But the Aztec game tonight, man, it is going to be lit. It's going to be so fun. It's going to be jam-packed. The show's going to be there. Everyone's going to be dialing it up. Have you heard any news about Miles Bird? Is he going to play?
He was on crutches this weekend, did not practice. He was out of the boot, but I don't see how he can play. And Brian Dutcher said on Friday, if he's good to go, he'll go. But we have to keep the big picture of the whole season.
Yeah.
If he goes and aggravates it or can't operate on it and further it makes it worse, what's the value? So if he has not practiced at all, so I have great reservation not to even use him right now because that was a significantly high ankle sprain.
Yeah, I'm hoping he can do it. I hope he can pull it together. But you said they've got those big games coming. Is that this coming weekend?
The following week.
The following week. Okay, so he's got another 7 days or so.
Yeah, before they go to Vegas for the tournament when they play Creighton and they're huge, big scoring forward, and then they play Oregon, and then maybe they play Tennessee. So they got three big games in Vegas. So you don't want the season to get away from you because you asked Miles Bird to play and then he re-aggravated the ankle. I always take safety first as it relates to players.
Well, how about, just think about all the different characters are on this roster. You got Nick Boyd, who came over from FAU, and that kid has a great, a three-point shot. He's a great leader, like a Lamont Butler.
You got McKinney and all of his grit and his anger.
Yeah.
The USD transfer.
Yeah, so he's experienced playing Gonzaga. And then Magoon Guath. That guy is special.
The potential is right there in front of you. It's not here right now tonight, but you can see it and say, wow. Now, I hope they can hold on to him.
Yeah, well, yeah, he might go into the transfer portal again, too. And then even like Pharaoh Compton as a freshman and Taj DeGorville, they've shown a lot. And gee whiz, you still have Miles Heide. There's a lot of guys there. They could make this thing interesting. But I'll tell you what, I remember Graham Ike when he played at Wyoming, and that dude was good.
And he's, the most unique thing, he stayed. He could have gone to the NBA 2 years in a row, and he stayed at Gonzaga after he left Wyoming.
Well, now he might have a shot at the NBA if he has a good year.
Yeah. So that's where we are. You get basketball comments, feel free. Jump on board. Hockey Hotline is open for the O Canada group. You got some topics here, John?
Yeah, the Hockey Hotline. Here we go. Hockey and violence.
Oh, that caught your attention, didn't it? Yeah, I got a real beef with the National Hockey League right now. The violent aspect of the game has started to get out of control again, and it really bothers me. We saw a brutal hit on Vancouver's 40-goal scorer Brock Boeser a week ago by a Toronto player. We saw another violent incident this past weekend in a Toronto Maple Leaf game against Edmonton on Saturday. Darnell Nurse, their star defenseman, got nailed in the face by a shoulder by a Toronto player. He suffered a concussion and eye damage. A player was hit with a 5-game suspension and I think a $45,000 fine. I just have a huge problem as to why this stuff just continues on the ice. It's a fast game. I understand it's a physical game. You got players are much more physical, much more bigger, and the point of contact is much more violent. And yet, this head-hunting stuff continues to go on almost game by game. Open ice hits or cross-checking guys from behind and putting them face first into the boards, which is a match penalty, and the league just does not control it. So I don't know what the Players Association should do, but they represent every player. They represent the superstars like Connor Bedard in Chicago. They represent the 23rd guy on the roster that might be a goon or a thug, but you're there to protect all your players. And I don't think the league is doing enough to stop all this damn headhunting that's going on in the NFL. And you can't tell me it's by accident, because when you're clobbering a guy at center ice with an elbow or shoulder into his face, that's intent to injure. League's got to clear that up, and some of the fights are still really, really bad, and I don't understand how the league can just allow this to go on. If you're a repeat offender on hits, your suspensions need to get steeper and steeper and more severe. One of the theories is you knock Brock Boeser, the Vancouver 40-goal scorer, out for maybe 4 weeks. Maybe that Toronto guy who hit him should be out for 4 weeks. That's his penalty. That would stop a lot of the crap. Players need to respect the other player's ability to earn a living rather than try to take him out of the game. To me, it's a terrible situation. Ducks are more competitive, though they're not scoring goals. The Ducks have just taken the top goal scorer from the San Diego Gulls. And part of me would say, oh, crap, we're losing another good young player here in San Diego in the American Hockey League. But part of me says Sam Colangelo from Western Michigan, a rookie, has earned this promotion. He scored 9 goals at the start of the Gulls season. That's pretty impressive. So he's gone to Anaheim. And speaking of the Gulls, they're starting to play some really wild hockey. They've been in holes. They gave up 5 goals on Saturday night or Friday night in the first period to Bakersfield. 5 goals. They came back. Got back in the game, tied it at 7-7, went to overtime, but they lost 8-7. But their guys are starting to score goals. Their young guys are starting to play better, and some of the few NHL veteran guys who come in as stabilizers, like Ryan Carpenter had a hat trick, they're playing better too. They drew 12,000 for a home game last week. They drew 11,000 plus on Friday night on military night. So if you're a hockey fan and you're watching us sample Gulls hockey, it's pretty cool. Lots of beer. Pretty good action on the ice. And yeah, there's a lot of babes in the stands, too. So if you're a hockey fan, John's been down there. He can vouch. He'll sign the memo with that.
I'll vouch for it.
Vouch for it. Those are all things in the NHL. You watch hockey. What do you think about the cheap shot hits?
Yeah, I was just thinking about it. You're talking about guys getting slammed into the wall and up against the boards. Now, this is just kind of a weird thought, but has the NHL ever considered putting padding on the boards? And would it even help?
No, because you had a plexiglass so the fans could see the game.
No, but on the bottom part, where it's a white wall, or would that even matter?
No, I don't think it would matter because it'd still be force of heavy hits. We went through a period where guys backed off and started to respect guys, but I swear to you, in the last 2 years, that preponderance of hits into the boards and guys getting clipped in open ice, knee-on-knee checks, elbows to the head, shoulders to the jaw checks, open ice. I think it's ghastly.
Do you think it's conspiracy theory here, but do you think that the owners are kind of just letting it go because that creates more of the excitement and the hype and the fans love seeing all the violence?
I would hope not, but yeah, I think people get amped when they see guys pushing and shoving in front of the net, behind the net if a fight breaks out. I just know the violence and the concussion issue and the dangers of CTE when you have fights. I mean, there's a number of NHL, quote, tough guys who died, who committed suicide because of concussions they suffered being the policeman on the ice for their team back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And we now know a lot more in sports medicine about CTE, concussions, etc. League cannot allow this to go unsanctioned.
I'm surprised, when people are on ice skates, that's a blade, on the ice. Has anyone ever had like a finger severed?
Oh, yes. It happened. Guys have had veins cut because their gloves come up here, but if your arm's in a different location, you can get a skate cut across a vein.
And then you could bleed out.
Yes, and you can. I was in the minor leagues with guys who fell behind the net and a guy fell over them. Pure accident, severed an artery around the neck. They saved the guy's life. That's real dangerous stuff. I'm talking about not accidents. I'm just talking about the violence. The American Hockey League and junior hockey has now sanctioned throat guards. Everybody wears a throat guard now in the AHL, not in the NHL. That's a player's choice. Why? Because the player who died in England last winter, that former New York Islander player,
oh yeah,
he got his esophagus slashed when a skate hit it. Well, he went down, and a guy fell over him.
Yeah.
So the violent aspect is one. The safety aspect, they've done everything else in terms of the eye shields. The helmets are much better now than they were before.
Do they enforce this differently in the minor leagues or in college hockey?
College hockey, everybody wears throat guards. Everybody wears cage face masks.
But as far as the hits, the brutal hits, do they enforce it and suspend guys more quickly in the minors?
Yeah, and there's no fighting allowed in college hockey. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of stick work in college hockey, but the guys are much more protected because they're wearing full cages. But American Hockey League, guys wear shields. Everybody is now wearing throat guard protectors, so you don't get hit in the throat with a puck or a stick. Or, unfortunately, guys fall and guys get clipped on their neck. But the violent aspect, the open ice hitting, and I'm sorry, the intent to injure to me is despicable.
You ever play broom ball?
No.
No, you ever heard of that?
No.
No, it's like, I remember playing in college. It just sounds like broom ball. We would get on the ice and with our tennis shoes and a broom and literally play hockey on the ice. And you get guys giving floor checks and everything there. It was like, intramural hockey. It was hilarious and fun. But that's what it just feels like. It's just like a hit shot. It's like a WWE event.
You guys used to drink a lot at UCSD, didn't you?
Yeah, yes. We did.
Okay, Hockey Hotline is open. You got a reaction to violence on the ice? Is it out of control? Is the league doing a good job or not doing a job at all in terms of controlling? And does my right winger have a right to earn a living when your defenseman tries to cheap shot him? Fans Forum, chat box is open, Hockey Fan. Late-breaking stories, John. You'd come up with a couple here.
Yeah, the high-speed sports wire. We got some IndyCar, soccer, and Mike Tyson, Jake Paul. That'll be good to talk about.
Let's talk IndyCar. Roger Penske, legendary owner, has bought the Long Beach Grand Prix. Okay. That will preserve IndyCar racing here on the West Coast. I mean, he's a pioneer. He's the most successful IndyCar owner, NASCAR owner, owns the Motor Speedway, owns the Indy 500. He has now bought the Long Beach Grand Prix, which is about to celebrate its 50th anniversary. He wants to expand street course racing. They've got, obviously, oval. They've got road courses. They'd like to expand street course racing. He's a brilliant, brilliant man at the sunset of his life. Roger Penske buys the Long Beach Grand Prix. NASCAR, we have talked about the Michael Jordan lawsuit against NASCAR, the antitrust violation he claims over the fact that NASCAR says every team has to have a charter. The charter gives NASCAR control of revenue streams, etc. Michael Jordan and Front Row Racing, another racing team, have sued NASCAR and have said, what you're doing is an antitrust violation. We have to be able to earn money to compete. You're limiting how much we can earn, but you're making us pay all the expenses. Well, they tried to go to court to get an injunction. Judge said, no, you have to negotiate with NASCAR. They just reached agreement. NASCAR will allow Michael Jordan and Front Row Racing to operate next year without a charter. You don't have a charter, that means you don't get a guaranteed spot in the top 36 places on the grid. It means you got to qualify. If you don't have a charter and you don't qualify for a race, you're losing some of your sponsorship money. This whole thing is about how much money I can generate by being in the starting grid. But they're going to compete, and it's called open classification. Michael Jordan's 23X team and Front Row Racing will compete as independents and try to qualify for 36 races while the antitrust lawsuit goes forward.
Wow.
The intangible, they're represented by a guy by the name of Jeffrey Kessler. He's the best sports antitrust lawyer the globe has ever seen. NASCAR's got a problem. Jeffrey Kessler might kick their ass in this antitrust lawsuit. But that being said, Michael Jordan and Bubba Wallace and those guys and 23X team and Front Row Racing, they're going to run as independents next year and try to qualify for every race. So that's auto racing. Soccer, Team USA won its first game under Mauricio Pochettino, their new coach. Beat Jamaica 1-0 on Friday in the first round of the Nations League. Ricardo Pepi scored the only goal of the game. They played really well. They play tonight. Second game against Jamaica. They win this one. They move on into group play in the second round. You're a smart guy. Please tell me you didn't subscribe to this. Please tell me you were not part of the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson money grab.
I was part of it. I'm an existing subscriber of Netflix.
Dumbass.
It was a mess.
Was that a fight or was that a fraud?
It was a spectacle. That's how I frame it.
Mike Tyson threw 2 punches at the start and then danced the rest of the night. Mm-hmm. Jake Paul is not a finished product as a boxer.
No.
If he went into the ring against anybody else, they'd be carrying him out of the ring right now. You know, he purports to be a heavyweight. Well, maybe within 2 years of boxing trials and skills and practices and fights, maybe he will. But that was terrible. And I paid Tyson all that money to dance all night. Boy, you're an idiot.
An idiot?
Why would you do that?
No, that was a great event.
Money away, throw it to me.
No. Well, I already subscribed to Netflix, so it didn't cost me any incremental dollars, but it was a pain in the ass because the streaming was so screwed up. And, we could see hints of this as the night went on. But, I was always hitting the back button and restarting, this particular show. But just to go on the Tyson fight. It was just the whole thing. It was like the night at the fight night, and people are there, the celebrities are there, people are dressed up.
The Gillette Cavalcade of Sports.
Yeah,
Friday night fights.
Exactly. And you got the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, and that women's championship match lead up to the.
That was a war.
That was really an entertaining and competitive match. And by the way, they got the call wrong on that one. Yes. The woman that lost should have won. And then even the early bouts. I'm not necessarily a big fans of boxing, but I just, it's just the romance of boxing and all the boxing movies that we watch. It was just kind of fun and a little different than watching MMA. But Jake Paul, let's just call him what he is. He's not a legit boxer, but the dude made $40 million, and he's big time on social media. That's not a bad way to make a living. And who did he fight? Nate Robinson, who's like, 5'4" or something like that.
Former NBA player.
Yeah, exactly.
Who got knocked out too.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it was just neat seeing Mike Tyson again, because we all loved what he was when he was at the top of his game. He was so magnificent. And Mike showed his age. But Mike got paid too, and so everyone seemed to be pretty happy.
You're amazing. You're just beyond description right now. Okay, we got a lot of topics on the table that we've given you. Hey, we do sports talk the way it should be done. Just admit that. And we want you to join us now on Fans Forum. This podcast is brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Center's 9 store locations to serve you in San Diego. You got projects in the house, at work, out on the back patio by the pool. When it comes time, think about these people for materials and think about these people for ideas. Dixie Line Lumber. So you got questions or comments or statements for me. You got something you want to say to the dumbass out in left field.
Hey.
Feel free to jump on board with him. Fans Forum chat box is open. Yeah, we got a few people with things to say. John, go ahead.
All right, let's get it started here with Greg. Because Lee and John, who would be on your Mount Rushmore of Padre pitchers?
Oh, my good. I would say probably in the early days, Randy Jones because of who he was. Secondly, I would have to say Trevor Hoffman. Last time I checked, they sent his mail to Cooperstown Hall of Fame. So those would be the first two right out of the gate.
Yeah, and you have to have Jake Peavy, I think, would be on that list. And then, in the recent era, you could talk about Darvish and Snell.
Yeah, but they're not real Padres. They were rental players.
But they got us, they're part of the team now. But, Randy Jones, won a Cy Young and almost won a second. So that guy is legit. He deserves to be on that Mount Rushmore. But I'm going back. I remember it was that guy that Mark Davis won the Cy Young as a reliever. And they had Bruce Hurst for a while, although I think him more as a Red Sox. Who else?
I was thinking long-lasting Padres, guys that really had identity here. Trevor Hoffman and Randy Jones probably are 1 and 1A.
Yeah, well, who else pitched for that would maybe be Hall of Fame level? There was Gaylord Perry, but he played for every team on the book.
Rental.
He was a rental. Well, came up from the minors. Andy Bennis was something. Jake Peavy definitely should be on that list. And there's a lot of hope, I think, for more future prospects. But it's fun to talk baseball in the offseason, isn't it?
Oh, Hot Stove League is always lit as far as I'm concerned. All right, Greg, thank you for joining us. Go ahead, next question.
Okay, next question. We'll go here to Callan. He says, afternoon, gents. Lee, I'd love to hear about what a typical day would be for you on game day for the broadcast, whether it was the Chargers, the Seahawks, or USC.
Good question, because I was doing a 4-hour sports talk show. I was booking all the guests on my 4-hour talk show. I was a solo host on my talk show. So that was my Monday through Friday. And in the evenings, I would do game prep. I look back now, I say, how the hell did I do all that? Because I was raising kids at the same time.
Yeah.
So I would look at video normally on Tuesday night of the Chargers' next opponent or the Seahawks' next opponent. Wednesday, I would start working on charts because you have these big flipboards you use with the players and their statistics, etc. It's always right there in front of you when you do the play-by-play. And usually on Thursdays, I would do notes. I'd have a legal pad with notes split of Chargers, Denver Broncos, things that I thought were fascinating to talk about. And then I do also spend the same time when I was doing USC and San Diego State. I'd spend part of a night doing boards for the Aztec game or the USC Trojans game. And do research about, I read press releases and stuff. So, and now go do the game on Saturday and go do the game on Sunday. And towards the end, I was meeting myself coming and going in the airport. I don't know how the hell I did what I did. The most fascinating story, the last year that I did all of it, I did the 4-hour talk show, and I did the Seahawks, and I did USC. And we had a bye week going into Thursday, Thanksgiving. I came home on Wednesday, and I was wiped out. I went to bed Wednesday. I did not get up till 1:30 on Thursday and had Thanksgiving dinner with my family and kids. And I went back to bed at 3:30, and I slept till Friday. My wife was so upset at me.
Oh, that.
I mean, I was on a treadmill. I love the regimentation. I love the preparation. I love game day. It was always an adrenaline rush for me. But, man, I look back and say, how the hell did I do all that? And I did it for 17 years of Chargers, Seahawks, Chargers, Aztecs, or Seahawks, USC. And I was coming and going in the airport.
You were Monday through Friday on the radio, and then you have
4 hours a day.
4 hours a day, and then you're doing college ball on Saturday and the NFL on Sunday. That's unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, so now a question I have for you is, like, during the week, did any of the teams give you maybe special access to the coach or to the players for interviews?
Oh, yeah. I'd go down, when the locker room was open, I'd go do it in the early afternoon. As part of my talk show, but also to do pregame packaging. I also packaged the whole pregame show myself. You know, we had a 9-hour game day on the Chargers.
I remember that.
Yeah, I mean, that was a lot of work, a lot of interviews, and I went and did a lot of that stuff, and then we had other people voice some things that I'd write for them. So I was doing stuff for NFL Films. They'd call me and say, we want this, this, and this from last Sunday's broadcast, and I'd have to go chase it and feed it to them. So you're right. I was bleeping brilliant. I mean, it was hard.
You're the James Brown of sports journalists, hardest working man. Now, did the teams ever kind of give you information, say, hey, say this, say that?
No. Well, one time we had an incident on a Charger flight where a player got arrested as he was boarding the flight, and they didn't want us to talk about it. I said, we've got to talk about it. It happened. It's newsworthy. I just happened to be there, and I saw it, so we're going to talk about it. And it was one of the Charger linebackers got arrested on traffic violation. We were in Miami, and one of the Charger linebackers got arrested on possession of cocaine in Miami. Chip Banks, former USC star. And I went to the general manager because I did a pregame segment with the general manager at that time, Steve Ortmeyer. I said, I'm going to have to ask you about this because I have my job to do. I'm going to ask you. You say whatever you want, but I'm going to ask you about Chip Banks got arrested Friday night. What's the status? What are you doing with him? And Steve understood what I had to do, and then he answered the questions. So we were never told, don't say this. I'm not going to cede to that. I'm going to do my job.
Good for you. Yeah, you have you have the integrity of the finest man in sports broadcast journalism.
That's a great question. That's how we got to where I am. Please explain to me how the hell I executed all that, because now I look back and say, I can't believe I did all that. But I did it because I loved it.
Well, and I was listening to you 7 days a week. I mean, it was unbelievable. Okay, let's keep going. We'll go to Chris. Saw huge news across my high-speed sports wire. Since USC has been placed on probation, the university can now fire Lincoln Riley and not owe him a penny as far as the buyout goes. Personally, I think he deserves more time to fix this thing, but this is a bleeping game changer. A penny for your thoughts.
He is not going to be fired. He didn't violate anything. The NCAA did not sanction him. The rules had changed as it relates to assistant coaches and volunteer coaches not being allowed to be on the field with players during spring ball or practice. The rules then changed, and Riley there were 11 violations over a 2-year span. He was not paying attention. They said, it's your program. He admitted it was his program. He needed to do a better job, but they cooperated fully. They sanctioned the football program already. USC did in-house. What was different about USC in this leadership is when the NCAA came to them and said, we've uncovered this, USC said, we'll take action, and they did. That's different than the Mike Garrett era and the whole Pete Carroll, Reggie Bush thing, where Mike Garrett's response is, yeah, everybody wishes they could be like us at USC. And the arrogance with Mike Garrett was unbelievable. And that's what got him in all kinds of trouble because they were non-cooperative with the NCAA. So he's not going to get suspended. He's not going to get fired. Granted, it's been a crummy season at 5-5, but he just got a commitment from one of the top high school recruits on the West Coast at quarterback at a Centennial. And everybody in the world wanted this kid, and he's going to stay home and go to USC. On top of the fact they still got Mayava, who's got 2 or 3 more years there. He's the transfer from Vegas. So he's got to fix it. We'll see if he does.
Wow. Well, what's the USC's record this year?
Is now 5-5.
5-5. Man, that's not Trojan-like.
No, not ever.
Not ever.
Welcome to the Big Ten.
Yeah, exactly.
Next question.
All right, let's go here to John. He goes, hey, Saw, back from my stay in SoCal. Can you believe Alex Ovechkin? Hat trick last night, 39 years old, tied for the NHL lead in goals for the season. He's gone from the, quote, will he pass Gretzky this season to will he pass Gretzky before the trade deadline?
Well, he's had a real bounce-back start. I don't know whether he can continue it for 80 games of an NHL schedule, but got a lot of miles on that body. But he's that's a Hall of Fame player. I mean, he's 39, looks like he's 59. I mean, he's really aged, but he's still got fire and still wants to play well. And it's a long NHL season. He's a great, great individual talent.
This is like a glory time for, older dudes in sports. I'm thinking of Mike Tyson as well.
Don't confuse Mike Tyson with Alexander Ovechkin. Don't confuse Mike Tyson with Hacksaw. Come on.
Ovechkin, now, where is he from? Is he from Russia?
Yes.
Okay. So, and when did he come to America?
He's been in the league a long time.
A really long time.
Yeah.
I know his name. I've seen it around all the time.
I want to say he's 18, 19-year veteran maybe now.
Wow. Okay.
Great talent. Unbelievable talent. And for the most part has stayed free of injuries. Because, I mean, when you go at the pace he goes, there's collisions and all that stuff. And he's not had any catastrophic injuries, which is pretty impressive. I mean, when you're playing at 38, 39, 40, with the exception of Gordie Howe, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Because Gordie played till he's 50.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks, John.
Okay, let's keep moving. This is from the O Canada Network. This is T. Will. He goes, hey, non-CFL football talk. Here we go.
Oh, I feel so bad for the O Canada Network. Winnipeg got blown out of the Canadian Football League Grey Cup yesterday, got beat by the Toronto Argonauts, and I felt really bad. Zach Collaros is a really fine CFL quarterback. He's a kid, not a kid anymore, from the University of Cincinnati. He threw for over 4,000 yards, but he got hurt in the game. He got a bad cut on his throwing hand, and they had to stitch it up. And he came back and played with a glove, but his accuracy went away through 4 interceptions in the game. And I was shocked that the Argonauts won the game because the Argonauts lost their star quarterback, Chad Kelly, in the semifinals of the playoffs with a dislocated ankle. And they went with a street free agent backup guy who's hardly played at all. I think his name's Nate Arbuckle. So the Argonauts, of all people, to win, and I feel bad for the Blue Bombers, and the Blue Bombers have been in the Grey Cup, 3-4 years in a row, and have come home without the trophy. That's tough. Collaros had a hell of a season in Winnipeg.
I watched part of the game, and I'm still fascinated by the rule differences with the NFL and seeing like 3 receivers like in motion going forward just as the ball was snapped. It's just crazy to see that.
Yeah, that and 3 downs and the 110-yard field and the wider field. It takes a unique quarterback to be able to play in the Canadian Football League. Not everybody can do it. It's very different. Funny story. I was a young kid growing up on Long Island. And this goes back it had to be in the 1960s. The first CFL game I saw was on ABC TV. Maybe Wide World of Sports televised the Grey Cup. And I think it was the Hamilton Ticats, and I don't know who the other one might have been, Winnipeg. And the game was stopped because of fog.
Interesting.
And they had a quarterback, I think he's legendary Hall of Famer, Russ Jackson. And he rolled right to throw, and he threw it into a fog bank. And nobody could see where the play was, whether the ball was caught, whether the ball was intercepted, whether it fell incomplete. And then here comes the side judge running up the sidelines, comes out of the clouds, and he says, incomplete. And that's the first CFL game I saw. I think it was Russ Jackson versus Joe Zuger, who was another star quarterback, might have been with the Hamilton Ticats. So that was my first taste of the Canadian Football League. Different game. You have to appreciate the taste. It's so different, but it's cool. And I talk to agents. I say, you know what? You represent this kid quarterback. He's not going to make it in the NFL. Send him to Canada because you can make a nice living. You can become a hero up there and do really, really well. The Winnipeg Blue Bomber quarterback, Zach Collaros, is a prime example. He's gone up there, and he's a star. He's making the most he can make. Now, granted, it's not what you make in the NFL, but you can I can live nicely on $400,000. Maybe you can't, but I mean that's a prime example. Zach Calero should be the poster boy for American quarterbacks who are just going to be rotation guys. What was the quarterback from the University of San Diego? Josh Johnson.
Yeah.
He's been with 1,000 teams in the NFL. He's been with 14 different teams as a backup and taxi squad and keeps getting cut and all. He should have gone to Canada. He might have done very well. Some guys go up there and flourish. Doug Flutie went up there, was spectacular. Obviously, Warren Moon, that's where he laid the groundwork for his Hall of Fame career when he came back to the NFL. Now, some guys go up there. Achilles Smith, San Diego kid, went to Oregon. Mm-hmm. He went up there and failed. It's a very different game for you to be able to play up there, but it's a fascinating game. It's really different. And their season's over by Thanksgiving because it's snow and cold.
I remember Achilles Smith also failed with the Bengals.
He was a high draft pick.
Yeah, he was. And but I just love you just reaching into the hopper and pulling out these old names from the CFL. You are like a database of information. But the fog thing, I remember it was an NFL game. It might have been
Eagles, Randall Cunningham, maybe?
Yes. It was like that. I was thinking
or was it
Eagles.
Donovan McNabb?
I was thinking Eagles Bears is what I have in my head.
Game.
And it was crazy because it was on TV and no one could see anything, and the announcers couldn't see anything.
I never did a fog. I did a high school game in Ohio in the fog. I had no clue at all. I'm sitting in this tiny little press box. I was doing high school football. It was my first radio job. And they ran a sweep, far right, option sweep into the fog base. I had no idea where the ball was, what happened on the play. All I could hear was fans cheering it.
So did you just say, I have no idea what's going on?
I said, he's in the fog bank. I don't know yet until they bring the ball back. I said, he must have gained 11 yards on that far right sweep. It's funny. The more you do this, the more places you've been and the weirder places you've gotten yourself into.
Yeah, let's keep on moving.
Canada, thank you for the call.
All right, let's go here to Running Man and talk about Sean Lewis. He says, agree totally, Lee. Should be a fee, especially all the investment into these players, and they just leave. How can the fans be loyal to a team if they just jump when they want to?
Well, I think it's a concrete statement that he made. That's the best press conference I've been to with him since his first press conference, and I like him. And he's really intelligent. But I'm tired of coach speak, and I'm tired of participation trophies, and everything's fine. It's not fine. Your ass is 3-7. You're not going to a bowl game. Got a lot of work to do. And by the way, there's only 12,000 fans in your last home game. But when I asked him that pointed question, I wanted a unique answer. I wanted to see what his intellect would say. And then when I couched it and said, if you were a king, well, he had to answer the question because the cameras were rolling. He gave a great answer. And it's the first time I've ever heard a coach actually enunciate it, that there should be a fee to my NIL program if you're taking my player that I cited, sorted, and developed. And he's right on. Whether or not the NCAA will do it, the conferences, whether the Power Four conferences would agree to it. But something's got to change because it's happening everywhere. It's happening at San Diego State. I'll grant you it's happening at Murray State. It's happening at VMI. It's happening at Toledo. You got a really good player that you found and developed in your group of 5, somebody from the Power Four is going to reach in and take them. Mm-hmm. It happens everywhere.
But, this cuts so many different ways because it's not as if the players are under contract. The players are on a 1 year to 1 year deal with their scholarships.
NIL money now.
But even their scholarship is a year-to-year thing. It's not a guarantee. So, you can make a sense like in the private sector, you have a contract and someone nips you out of the contract, there might be a penalty or a transfer fee, but this is a year-to-year thing. It's like everyone's a free agent when the year expires.
Yeah, but I think it's damaging. I think it's deathly to the smaller Division I schools.
Oh, I agree with you.
Their kids are being cherry-picked. Yeah. I'll give you a prime example. Indiana, 10-0, ranked 5th in the country, right? Mm-hmm. Their coach is Kurt Signetti. He just came from a 1AA school, came from James Madison, where he did a great job. He hauled out 5 or 6 kids from where he was at James Madison and took him to IU, and they're all playing. His quarterback is from my alma mater, Ohio U, mm-hmm. Nathan Rourke, or Curtis Rourke. Nathan is his brother, plays in the Canadian League. That kid set all the passing records at Ohio U, and Indiana bought him with an NIL price. So OU loses their superstar record-setting quarterback, and they don't get anything for it. And it's happening everywhere. So there's got to be something structurally different as to how the NIL operates, how the transfer portal operates. And what Sean Lewis said today, I think is unbelievably intelligent about there needs to be compensation. If you're taking my best player, my school needs to be compensated so we can go get other players. Makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. Well, here's another comment. We were talking about the Aztecs, and you said when you were the voice of the Aztecs in the early 90s, they were filling up the stadium. Force Ghost Fabio says, gas was $1 when San Diego State was filling stadiums.
Well, we did. I think I did the Aztecs. I've done them multiple times when they were on our station, but it was 90, 91, 92, I believe, was the Marshall Faulk era. And I mean, the stories about where that kid came from and how he developed is just staggering. You know, when they opened training camp his freshman year, he was the 7th running back on the depth chart. And they had a controlled scrimmage on the backfield, the first summer scrimmage of camp. And he got to play 2 series at the end of the day. It was hot. There was no grass. It was a dirt field. It was just ragtag. He ran for 2 touchdowns on sweeps. And I said, wow. Well, he wound up being a starting running back that year, and he had a 386-yard game against the University of Pacific.
I remember that.
With 5 touchdowns. I mean, he set the NCAA record at that point of 386 yards. But that was a special era, and they had JUCO transfers. They did not have any Division I bounce backs, but Marshall Faulk was a defensive back from Louisiana who had hurt his knee, and nobody wanted to recruit him as a running back. And San Diego State said, you come, we'll put you on the depth chart, you prove yourself. And he did that first scrimmage in the dirt, and he became a superstar. I mean, he gave them 3 unbelievable years, and he was obviously a Heisman Trophy finalist and all-time record-setting running back, et cetera, and first-round pick in the National Football League. But it was electric what they were doing. And Al Luganville was the coach, and he threw the damn ball down the field. He had NFL players all over the place. I mean, he had wide receiver with the Bengals, Darnay Scott.
Yeah.
They had David Lowry, a pepper pot quarterback who just had no conscience at all. He'd just throw that sucker down the field. They had Falk, and they had tight ends, and they had offensive linemen that wound up in the NFL. It was a great 3 years, and I mean, the greatest college game I ever broadcast, aside from when I did the Sun Devils, and Arizona State beat Michigan and Bo in the Rose Bowl, which was amazing.
That's huge.
That's huge. But the most exciting game I ever did was we played BYU, Ty Detmer, 51-51 tie. It was a Thursday night. It was the first game ESPN ever broadcast on a Thursday night. And the whole nation got to see Falk and David Lowry and all those wide receivers. 51-51 shootout with Ty Detmer on TV. How cool was that? And that San Diego State was drawing 48 to 52,000 for home games. And it was an NFL team in town and the Padres in town.
Yeah.
Now we have no NFL team. I don't know where the football fans went, but they're not going to San Diego State and Snapdragon, which just blows my mind.
Well, they're all going to Petco. I mean, that's where they are. But I remember I went to the game when they played Miami.
Yes.
And that stadium was freaking lit. I mean, it was just raging. And I remember the Aztecs lost that game, didn't they?
Missed field goals.
Yeah.
Miami Hurricanes, yeah.
Yeah. And I remember that was Dan McGuire, Mark's brother there playing quarterback. So, yeah, those were good times. It would be just so wonderful if they can bring something like that back.
To the shiny new stadium. Cool.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
But I went back and I did an investigative piece on ticket pricing because the Mountain West kind of feels like the Mid-American Conference where I came from. Mm-hmm. Same type of schools, same type of funding and all that. They charge in Miami of Ohio, Western Michigan, and Ohio U. Their tickets range from $20 to $50. Okay. What do they charge at San Diego State?
I know it's a lot. I know it's a ton. Like you have to pay a license fee.
Yeah. $200 per ticket, top ticket.
Yeah.
And that's a ticket. That's not the season. That's a ticket.
Yeah, it's a seat license fee. Yeah.
And you got to pay a seat license fee if you're buying season ticket. The amount of money they're gouging the community here. And then, by the way, since you're driving, you're paying the parking pass, and that's $40.
Yeah, it's insane.
And the hot dogs, it's a money grab. I'm sorry, it's terrible. And they want to say, well, we're like the Mid-American Conference. I'm sorry, you're not like Miami of Ohio or Western Michigan. I've been to those places. I know what those ticket prices are compared to what you're trying to charge here. And by the way, you're not bleeping winning either. So that's why I had $12,775. That's got to be the all-time modern-day low for a home game.
Yeah, and then the other part of it was the trouble with the turf.
Yeah.
I mean, what's your take on that whole story?
Well, it's going to be replaced again, and they're going back to the original. I think it's called Latitude 36, and that'll work. Mm-hmm. But again, you have the stadium. You're trying to generate as much money as you can to pay off the bonds. So therefore, we have the women's soccer, and we're going to have MLS soccer here, and you got all these other events coming in here. You got to have turf that's going to be able to hold up to it. And this thing got screwed up because they wore out the turf. They couldn't get replacement turf, so they tried something else, and then it became sand-based and was terrible. But that'll be solved by opening day next year. It'll be clean. It'll be solved. But they're not solving the ticket price problem.
No, they got to solve the winning problem first.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, thank you for the input, Force.
Okay, let's go to Jeff here, talk NFL. Can the Steelers sustain the season they're having? Didn't expect them to be tops in the black and blue AFC North.
How good a coach as Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season. I gauge a coach as to where you start and how much better your team goes as the season goes on. And Mike Tomlin is one of the absolute best. I don't think the brand of football they display in the Three Rivers is very sexy. But they make enough plays, and they do play damn defense. They play Pittsburgh Steeler defense. I told John before we started the podcast, I said, if you close your eyes and you think about what's the skyline of Pittsburgh look like? And I told John, close my eyes, and it's steel mills and soot and trolleys and all that. That's the way Pittsburgh plays football, steel mill football. Kind of grimy and gritty.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's who the Steelers are. I don't think they go deep in the playoffs, because you're playing great offenses when you get to postseason, and they'll probably move the ball against you. And if you can't move the ball against them, you probably go home after one playoff game. But they got 8 wins. They're 8-2. How is that possible with rental quarterbacks like over-the-hill Russell Wilson and unproven Justin Fields? And Tomlin's coached these guys to an 8-2 record.
Well, do you believe in Russell Wilson? Because he was crap in Denver, and I figured his career was over, and now suddenly he's in the mix.
He's running around making plays again. He's not making them to the same tune that he made him in Denver or prior to that when he was a Minnesota Viking young star.
The Seahawks.
Yeah, and the Seahawks. He's not as athletic now as he used to be, but he's still making enough plays. But you get to postseason, you're playing real people here. You're playing Joe Burrow throwing the ball all over the place, and Justin Herbert scaring the daylights out of you now because he's throwing it and running it. So I don't know if Pittsburgh's got enough guns to stay up with somebody offensively.
Still, I mean, you're right. It's amazing. They're 8-2, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Which is just incredible.
So the description of Steeler football, grit and grime.
Yeah, there we go.
Thank you for the comment, Jeff.
Okay, let's go to do some social medias here, and let's talk. There's another comment on the Steelers-Ravens game, and this is from Jared. He goes, "Never doubt Steeler football, especially against the Ratbirds."
All I could think of at the end of that Steeler game was my late friend, longtime broadcaster, sports writer in Pittsburgh, Myron Cope.
Oh yeah,
and he had this twang when he spoke. You could hardly understand him because it was a Pittsburghese twang. And he used to say at the end of the game, "Oy vey, Steelers win." It's just, and he was cut from a different cloth for sure. He was 1950s guy, journalist, but
Do you ever see that portrait they did of Franco Harris with the sledgehammer?
Sure.
Oh, because he looked like he was like a coal miner guy. It's that whole thing.
So yeah, so Steelers are okay right now. We'll just see if they go deep in the playoffs, but I don't know anybody, aside from I'm married to a Steeler fan, I don't know anybody that thought this would be an 8-2 football team except a Steeler fan in my house.
Yeah, no way. they had no hope. I mean, when they had the 2 quarterbacks and you didn't know what was going to happen, it was going to be a mess. Yeah,
I tell the story about, I told John this, my wife's West Virginia, big Steeler fan, big Pirate fan, anything Pittsburgh's a fan of. She'd sit there and watch a Steeler game and she'd be barking. She'd be barking at Ben Roethlisberger at the end of his career throwing interceptions. She'd stand up, and the stuff that came out of her mouth when he'd throw picks, she yelled at the TV one time so loud she scared the golden retriever.
The dog. Your wife is so mild and nice and friendly.
Not on Sunday at 1 o'clock.
Did she root for Scott Kaplan when he was kicking at Pitt?
No. Greatest story I can tell. I was dating my wife before we got married. I tried to impress her. I was a talk show host in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
okay?
that's
I don't know if I was a star, but I was a star.
Yeah.
So I was trying to impress her. So I got her tickets for the Browns-Steelers game in Cleveland. Those are impossible to get, but I got them. And she took her father to the game, not me.
Well, were you there probably as part of your job, though, right?
Oh, yeah, I could cover it too, but
Yeah.
she took her father to the game. Absolutely amazing. Okay, enough with me. Next question, social media. Go ahead.
All right, here. Let's talk a little bit about the Chargers. This is from Aaron. He goes, the biggest knocks to this team so far is that they haven't beat winning teams. I think are largely blown out of proportion. The Steelers and the Chiefs were lucky to play an injured quarterback with an injured offensive line. Herbert hasn't gotten going until he got healthy, and I guarantee the Chargers would be at least 8-1 with wins over the Cards and the Chiefs if they were playing at the same capacity.
Everybody's got injuries, so I think you have to wash that explanation out. That being said, as I talked about last Thursday, the Chargers won their first 6 games against teams that had a combined record of 17-40. They didn't play anybody. Either had a rookie quarterback or somebody's backup journeyman quarterback. Now, these next 5 games, starting with the Cincinnati win, the next 5 games, the composite record of the teams they're playing, which included the Bengals, is 30-19. Now you're playing real people. So you just beat Burrow, although Burrow almost beat you. Mm-hmm. You got an angry Lamar Jackson in Baltimore coming in next. You go to Atlanta, where Kirk Cousins plays lights out in Atlanta. Then you got to go to Arrowhead to play Mahomes. And then you get the 25-touchdown quarterback, Baker Mayfield, Tampa Bay. So these 5 games decide the legitimacy of the Chargers. And you got Justin Herbert, but the fact that they almost gave that thing away in the second half because they were charging,
they were.
That scares the daylights out of me because I still don't know how complete a team they are defensively. I have no doubt that a healthy Herbert, throwing and running with all the other combo stuff, he's made those receivers better and better. That's a dangerous offensive team, but I don't know about their defense right now. And the fact that you allowed Cincinnati to score on all those possessions in the second half and almost lost that game, holy mackerel.
Well, I saw some of those runs that he had. He was just galloping for 20 yards at a time.
He's 6'6". He's a long strider.
Yeah, and I imagine the ankle, everything's healed, but just on the running game alone, who do you like better, Herbert or Josh Allen?
Oh, Josh Allen's much more physical. I worry about Herbert. Herbert he got spun around in the pocket and was trying to break containment. I thought it was going to be a head-on collision. It was going to knock him out of the game. I thought he was going to get knocked into next year. And luckily, the Bengals player didn't bury him. The Bengals player knew he was going down, and he could have popped him face-to-face and probably would have knocked him out. And I was really worried that he got lit. And luckily, the Bengal player pulled off because he knew Herbert was going down. He was not going to bury him. But no, Josh Allen is so much bigger and much more physical. Herbert's faster. There's no doubt about that.
But that run that Josh Allen made at the end of that game on Sunday was fantastic.
Yeah.
What do you think about Ladd McConkey? He was pretty good.
He's always been pretty good. He's a great route runner. Tell you what, he's tough as nails. Mm-hmm. He gets banged around a lot, but he's good. Quentin Johnston is starting to look like the player that they thought he could be. I mean, he's played much better route running, dependability, catching passes, and even going into traffic and getting stuff. He looks so different now than he did a year ago. He's just a young pup out of TCU a year ago. So I like the package of school people around him. I still got reservations about their defense. We'll see. But they checked off one box. They beat a good quarterback in Burrows, but they almost gave that game back. That still scares me. And I tell you, Baltimore comes in. Baltimore's really going to be angry after losing in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game to watch.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, Quentin Johnston was giving Ladd McConkey all the love for that big catch near the end of the game. So it's nice seeing the teammates supporting each other.
Pretty good offense. On we go. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, let's talk a little Clippers here, and this is with Chuck. He says, it's a shame that Steve Ballmer bought a cursed organization, but why stop there? Why not also buy the Angels? Maybe the two curses will negate themselves.
Well, I was told that there has been conversation back when Artie Moreno actually put the Angels up for sale. There was conversation, would Ballmer want to be an investor? Would Ballmer want to take over control? Ballmer equals brilliance. I mean, corporate-wise, who he ran Microsoft?
Yeah, he was the CEO or the president under Bill Gates.
He is unbelievably gifted intellectually from a business standpoint. Yeah, so, I don't know whether or not he wants to venture farther into ownership and do other things. But he did write the check to build the Intuit Dome, the brand new arena there. And I think he's going to be a player in free agency a year from now. And, he's got to rebuild it. They've just tried twice with star players and have had injuries have wiped him out. The first time, Blake Griffin. Now this time, Kawhi Leonard. And so there'll be another round of free agency, and I think he'll be back in the marketplace, try to lure people to the second biggest market in the country, L.A.
See, it just goes to show you, you say great organizations win championships, but you could still have a great owner who's trying like hell to build a great organization.
And have bad luck.
And things don't work. And there's just, it's amazing that there are some teams that have been able to sustain it for so long.
And there are other teams that have it and screw it all up. You didn't mention Jeannie Buss, did you? Lakers?
Maybe the first family of football. You talking about them too?
That too. Okay, thanks for joining us.
Okay, let's go here. Let's talk about the MLB Rookie of the Year, which, by the way, they're going to announce that in a few hours. And this is from Joel, and he says, Skeens is going to win it. Merrill would win it pretty much any other season, but Skeens was arguably the best pitcher in baseball since he came up in May, and his numbers are historically good. Also, whether right or wrong, they don't usually take team success into consideration with Rookie of the Year. That's more of an MVP criteria.
Not a bad argument. I concur with you. But Jackson Merrill played such an integral role, and his statistics across the board in all those games he played, and he played all the games. He didn't pitch once a week. I think Jackson Merrill rates above Churio, and Churio had a good back half of the season in Milwaukee, but his was kind of a half campaign. I mean, Jackson Merrill did it right from the get-go, and he did it with his glove, he did it with his bat, he did it with speed on the bases and grit. What's the Peanuts character? Pigpen? So he's got dirt on him. That's what I see. I see Jackson Merrill, and I think of Pigpen all the time.
Pigpen.
Yeah.
I remember him. Yeah. You always had a cloud of dust around him. But, Jackson Merrill won the Silver Sluggers. He was the best hitting center fielder in the National League. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, what a rookie year.
There's no doubt Skeens was just physically dominant, but he pitched once a week. And by the way, where did his team finish? So I think Merrill had a bigger impact on Padres' success than Skeens had on Pirates' success. And Churio had a nice season, but so did Willie Adames and a whole bunch of other people. And Churio only did it for about the back half of the schedule. So I'm not biased. I'm just saying I like Pigpen more than I like anybody else.
Well, we're going to find out at 3 o'clock Pacific time today.
Let's do one more here.
One more. Let's talk a little Padres-Dodgers, and this rivalry is always lit. HCF says, hey, nice try, Padre. Nice effort, but no cigar. You'll be and continue to be second fiddle to the Dodgers. The rich are getting richer. Get used to it. Dodgers rule. Dodgers will be the 3 samurai Dodgers will rule for now and the future. So
I am fascinated with the rumor that's out there that they are not only talking about Sasaki, and many people have the opinion they have the inside track on, but they're talking to Snell. Now, that'd be Snell at the Dodger price, which is 3 years. I was told over 100, 105, or maybe it was, I can't recall the exact figure. I think it's almost $40 million per year over 3 years. No deferred money. But they're not going 5 and they're not going 7. And Boras says, I'm not going to do an Ohtani deferred contract. But the Red Sox are in on him. The Mets are going to be in on him, too, on Blake Snell. So it'll be interesting. But, geez, if the Dodgers got Sasaki and Snell, wow. We'll see.
Yeah, and then you still have Yamamoto and Ohtani. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Now, Ohtani's going to pitch next year, but maybe not till halfway through the year?
Yeah, because he's not allowed to do anything in terms of baseball preparation for 10 to 12 weeks post-labrum surgery.
Okay.
And that means he can't do any running. He can't do any of this.
Okay.
All he's doing is his minor range of motion for 4 weeks. Then he does some type of weight work for 4 weeks for the range of motion strengthening here. Then he can do cardio, but he can't do treadmill. He can't be doing sprints. And I was told he's not going to do any baseball-related touch a baseball thing till sometime 12 weeks after surgery, which is going to push him to February 1st. So
there's no way he's going to be the starting rotation to begin the year.
No, he will be able to do swinging stuff.
Okay.
With bats sometime around the 1st of February.
Unbelievable. But I will say this, though, here about HCF. This is typical of our Dodger fan friends because, they won the championship and they're fired up and it was a big rivalry with the Dodgers. But, man, they just think San Diego, they just love making fun of Padre fans. Your little brother, little sister, you guys are never going to amount to much. We're going to get Crochet. We're going to get Sasaki. We're going to get Snell. We're going to have it all.
Yeah, and we didn't talk about Crochet and the whole myriad of hot names. Mm-hmm. Crochet's out there, and everybody's offering packages of 3-for-1 or 4-for-1 the White Sox. Now, that also includes the Yankees, and that also includes the Mets, and that also includes the Red Sox, and the Padres are in on that conversation. And the Dodgers, who have a plethora of people in the farm system in Oklahoma City, they could be in the conversation. So somehow, some way, for Dodger fans, you're going to wind up with some mixed bag. You're going to wind up with Sasaki and Snell, or maybe Sasaki and Crochet. It's going to be fascinating to see. So winter baseball meetings, 1st of December. Don't miss our podcast. There'll be a lot there to cover.
A.J. Preller sleeping this time of the year?
Not much.
Not much. He's up 24/7, I think.
All the time. That's who he is. Mm-hmm. Hey, listen, we hope you have enjoyed our Thursday and Monday podcast. Just a couple of reminders. Want you to share. Want you to subscribe. Subscribe on YouTube so you'll get all the alerts that we put up on our YouTube channel. Want you to check my website. I write on it every day. The volume of information you get, you won't imagine how much stuff there is to read first thing every morning at LeeHacksawHamilton.com. Join the Insiders group. It's right there on the homepage. Fill that out on my website. Also, if you're on social media, I know you're on social media. I see all your shtick on social media. I want you to be part of my Twitter All-Star team. Join me, follow at Hacksaw1090, at Hacksaw1090. So we had lots to cover. John, great Monday show, even if you paid money to watch Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight versus fraud. But we'll be back here on Thursday. Have yourself a great week.
Right on. Go Aztecs tonight.
Thank you for joining us. Always great to have you part. Tell your friends about what we do Mondays and Thursdays on Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast app.
Touchdown, San Diego!
For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.